A lot of the money actually we've been noticing at Vizsla has been moving into owning the equities as well, because that's a great way to have that exposure to the upside.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And today, excited to dig into the silver market from the mining side and find a little bit more about just some of these issues that are going on. On one hand, we see record demand, whether in the silver trust, the deliveries on the COMEX, which is interesting in a market that was already in a deficit, and you've had supply shut down this year. So a lot of fascinating things going on. Fortunate today to be joined by Michael Konnert of Vizsla Resources. So Michael, how is everything going with you today, sir?
Oh, very well, very well. Thank you, Chris, and thanks for having me on your show as well too. We're very happy to be part of this. So, yeah, it's been an exciting past week or 2 weeks here for our company. We've made a discovery in Mexico, so it's been a great time to be in silver.
Yeah, I sure think so. And especially with all the dynamics, you have not even just the institutional demand, bullion dealers across the globe. We bring them on one after another here. They're all reporting the same thing. And one of the mysteries, people wonder, where is this silver coming from? Because at the same time, we're seeing mines, some of them coming back online now, but curious anything you could share from your perspective on how that all stacks up.
Well, that's quite amazing to me. I mean, most of the major countries that produce silver, Mexico, Peru, even as a byproduct of copper in Chile, have been severely disrupted from these COVID shutdowns. So we already know that there's going to be a massive shortage basically in the mine production there. And in our conversations and what we're seeing in the news, I mean, it seems like demand has completely picked up for silver.
Yep.
This reminds me of other metals. One that stands out to me even was a very small market, of course, is cobalt, and we saw that type of disruption of supply and increase of demand, and when we saw that metal go up 5x, and we've seen this in silver in the past as well too, in very similar economic situations. So I am biased. I am the CEO of a silver company, but there's a reason for that, and I think the setup for the metal has never been better than it is right now.
And perhaps because I find this is interesting, like you said, you are part of it. But are these the same factors that led you to be in that role?
Well, I think it's kind of funny, and I actually did a video with Real Vision, and one of the major things I said is that if you're bullish on gold, I think you even have to be more bullish on silver, and
Yep.
the reason for that is, I mean, you look at the headlines that you see in the news these days. Each of those, every week it feels like there's something that's come out in favor of gold. That would have moved the market significantly back in 2008 and onward. But, I think we've seen this historically in the last 5 bull markets for silver that is preceded by a movement in gold. And so, when we were building Vizsla, when we were looking at entering the precious metal space, silver always stood out to us as the superior metal, because you also, in addition to the precious metals component of it, you also get to enjoy some of the industrial components as well. So as economies enter into situations that are a little bit more choppy or disruptive for the general economy and good for the precious metals component, as they recover, you also get that industrial application of silver as well too. So we feel like there's 2 ways to win, and both of those are underway right now.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I find that most of the people that are associated with some sort of silver business usually didn't. I mean, there's easier ways to go in life than picking silver as a career, but it's usually on some level we've seen that something is massively out of line. And I like how you mentioned that if you like gold, you have to love silver, because that was actually the episode of a show we posted a couple of nights ago. Interestingly, that was the same thing. The guy who wrote Ronnie Stoifferle, who writes the In Gold We Trust report, Even the authors of the In Gold We Trust report are echoing that same thing, that if you see what the Fed's doing and you think, well, I don't see them stopping anytime soon, you almost have to love silver too, even more so.
Yeah, exactly. And history will tell you that. Looking back, as I said, even the last of the five of the last silver bull markets, it lagged and it exceeded. And I think, looking at where we are setting up right now at well, $18 silver right now as we speak, that's setting up for a spectacular run. And silver, you're right, it's a difficult business to be in, but when it's moving in the right direction, it can be very, very profitable for investors. And so that's what we want to create here with our company is a way to have exposure to that.
Yeah, and Michael, I won't make you comment. I'll just say it out loud, and if you can pipe in if you want. But it's interesting just thinking about how if silver's at a third, not even of just its 2011 high, but it's 1980 high, and it's hit that $49, $50 mark a couple of times. What happens if it goes over next time?
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's what's exciting here is that it feels like there's forces at play here. I'm talking about the Fed and forces that are going to push gold. I mean, we're already at $1,800 gold, essentially $1,750, $1,800 gold. I mean, that's the 2000, very near to the 2011 high as well. So I think it's going to be very, very exciting. That's I'm not going to put a price target on it, but it's going to be very exciting for the metal.
Yeah, well, I've been careful about the price target too. I understand it's like you don't want to just always say wild numbers yet. I have a feeling before it's all said and done, even folks like you and me and many of the people listening will be surprised at the numbers it goes to. Again, I'm just sharing my opinion, although it's funny, Michael, we mentioned that I have a book on silver, and one of the things I found interesting, asked David Morgan as well as many others about for each ounce of silver, how many people think they own it in paper form. He said 500 to 1, but that's without counting derivatives. So it's like you have all this happening and then you pile on leverage on top of it, and perhaps worth going out and finding silver to really be on top of this.
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's not very clear, is it, to understand what's really going on there? That's what you mentioned with your book, and there's some great work like what you're doing, that helps people understand it, but it isn't it isn't really clear exactly where all that silver's going.
Yeah, you're right. It isn't clear, although it's interesting. I'm curious your comments on the financing market, because it seems like a lot of the silver deals that are not the things you find on CNBC oversubscribed. So perhaps it could even be that the smart money is moving in early and seeing this, and especially when the price is still low, does create an opportunity if people understand all of the dynamics.
Yeah, well, that's actually the interesting part as well too. Is as we mentioned, silver going from 12 to 50, that type of movement in the past. During that same time, a number of the equities, the companies that are mining silver or looking for silver, had a experience a rise of you know 10 times that in some cases, or it's been spectacular. So a lot of the money actually we've been noticing at Vizsla has been moving into owning the equities as well, because that's a great way to have that exposure to the upside. I mean, it's important to have part of your net worth or your portfolio in the physical metals, or if you like the exchange traded aspects of that. But also, I think if again, if you love gold, you must love silver, and if you love silver, I think it's a great way to play that is the equities as well too. And so we're starting to see that. We've seen a number of groups that maybe not necessarily new to the industry, but have renewed their interest in these mining equities that like Vizsla and like probably some of the larger ones as well too are starting to see those inflows. So it's it's shaping up again. This is what we see, and often groups like ours. I've just been in mining, for my whole entire professional career, and sometimes it becomes topical, and for the other rest of the decade, it's you're alone, and so you really kind of become acutely aware of when those capital inflows are happening, and we're starting to see that now with new groups looking to invest in the silver equities as well.
Yeah, and interesting how you mentioned it's not the casino type market that a lot of people flock to the stock market for these days. Yet, when you think of the energy or balance of a market, and if people might be slightly impatient and you can be the guy who is patient, I think that's why these type of opportunities set up like they do. And you just touched on the leverage and why some people look to the equities in situations like this where they're expecting a rally. Could you break that down for folks who may be hearing that for the first time, but explain why companies do get leverage when there is a rally?
Well, there's I guess the big reason is that you're getting leverage on the upside. Whether it's the operational, the difference between the cost to mine an ounce and what you can sell it, and as that increases, and the scalability of operating companies. But where you really see a lot of the leverage and some of the most exciting gains that investors had in the last cycle is when companies go from discovery to production during a metal cycle. Let's say when silver is rising through this entire cycle, and so not a lot of companies can actually do that. But I think looking back, First Majestic, Silver Wheaton, some of those names that really kind of cemented themselves, Pan American Silver, really cemented themselves in kind of silver fame in the last cycle. They had leverage because they're also scaling their business simultaneously to the metal the metal price increase. So again, if you're looking at silver and you're looking at equities, there's really a few criteria that you need to look at. One is what is the underlying project? What are they doing? Are they exploring? Are they made a discovery? Are they moving into production? Can they move rapidly into production? That type of thing. Management team is important as well. Share structure. There's all these other components, but the real thing is there a company? Does this company have a track record of creating success as well? So it's if looking at the leverage, I would invite people to look at Vizsla as a way to get leverage to the metal price. And I'm happy to explain, the business plan a little bit more as needed too.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue, because I was wondering, for the people who are watching, I've heard we have a small percentage of silver fans in our audience. I don't know how that could be. Could you just give them an idea of like the overall profile, what you guys are offering in terms of for investors and what they might be looking at, and some
Sure. Well, I think we did touch on it, but Mexico is actually the world's top producer of silver as a metal. And as an investor group, myself and our board and our basically our team, we decided to enter Mexico as a place to develop a silver company. And what we've done is essentially consolidate a historic mining district that's been producing silver for over 400 years. We consolidated it for the first time in its history, really. Now, what's interesting about this district is that it's very close to infrastructure. There's a 4-lane highway that runs through the project. There's a number of production centers on the district. There's a mill that we have under option. There's the tailings. There's everything. There's actually production in the district. But what's really interesting is because it's a high grade area. The local Mexican mining companies actually haven't done any real exploration, and so we're the first company that has this entire district to explore, and we've been very successful in finding new high-grade areas of silver there. So, for instance, in Mexico, the average grade of a deposit that's going into production is about 300 grams per ton silver equivalent. And that typically is mined in Canadian terms over a meter or 2 meters. That's typically the width of the vein. We've just announced a new discovery at ours, which is 5 times the average grade of a asset that's in production in Mexico, and it's 4 times the width, or even 8 times it. So we drilled something that was 8 meters of 1,500 grams per ton silver equivalent. So very, very high grade, putting us in the top percentage of discoveries in Mexico. But what's exciting about this high grade discovery, aside from our shares moving very, very rapidly to new highs, is that we're really just getting started. We're drilling across this district. We have the production profile under option. We can move very quickly into production as we become more successful. And we're going to be basically the first company that has this entire district, 15 kilometers by 8 kilometers in dimensions, over 75 kilometers of total vein extent. It truly is a massive district that compares to many other famous districts in Mexico. We're going to be the first company that basically has the rights to explore it and move it into production. And I did mention a few things there as we're talking about equities, and there's 2 other things I like to point out about our company, aside from the fact that we have the district scale, we have the grade, we have the production potential profile, but we also have a team that's that's accomplished and that's done this before. We have people that are that run multi-billion-dollar engineering firms on our board. We have a fellow who, my business partner, who started a multi-billion-dollar private equity firm and was involved in one of the discoveries of one of the world's largest deposits of high-grade uranium. A very, very well structured team, but also a very well structured company. And as I mentioned, one of the important things to look at is share structure. We have only 70 million shares outstanding. We're fully financed. We just recently completed a financing. We have about $6 million in the bank to complete drilling. So all in all, a very well structured company, valued at under $70 million market cap, where you see other discoveries trading at multiples of that. And so looking back to previous cycles, I think we check a lot of boxes of the type of company that succeeds when silver goes up. So we're very excited about the opportunities that we have at hand.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to be excited about. And Michael, I know you also released some drill results last week. And in wrapping up, perhaps you can tell people how they can get in touch with you, find out more about the company, and also if they want to see that press release on the drill results.
Yeah, so our website is vizslaresources.com. It's going to have everything, including a virtual tour that we've put together. You can actually go through our project, see the mill, see the drill results for yourself on a very cool virtual model, and that'll have all the contact information that you need on there as well to get a hold of me and send me an email if you have any questions. And we'd love to hear from shareholders and potential investors.
Well, I appreciate that, Michael. All that information is going to be in the description field below. And actually, fortunately, Michael stuck around to give a little bit more in-depth profile of the company. And if you'd like to see that, which I think you will, just click because it's coming your way now.